Hello. Hi, Kathy.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh my God. You know that's a loaded question. So, hello everybody. Welcome. This is Kathy Keegan and Elaine Williams with Still Human. Thank you so much for listening. If you're new to us, we started this podcast because we wanted to take a comedic look at being a coach, being an entrepreneur, and being human. And how you can be this amazing coach for other people, but sometimes it's really hard to coach yourself. And that's why it's good to be surrounded with other cool coaches. And Kathy has been such an inspiration to me and how she handles life. And we just kept laughing. So that's why we created Still Human Podcast. So welcome.
Yeah, I think Elaine, it's so important to tell on ourselves.
How long do you have?
Well, there is a caveat to that or a caveat to
Oh,
that, which is you do have to read the room. So, there is a lot to be said about being vulnerable and being open, and that's fine. I mean, I think that's really important. And you have to read the room. Because there are certain places where I probably wouldn't go into like a supermarket and say, I'm feeling really crowded here right now, because someone's going to record that and post it on Facebook and I'll be shamed or something. But that's not me. I don't do that. But anyway, poor example. And Elaine, the thing I always think about with you is when we get on the phone, Elaine says, Kathy! And the way she says my name, it's like I just feel like I've been wrapped in a blanket, and it's so nice. And there really is this idea of how we connect and what we're learning, that even our brains are now connecting somehow, some way, and they're proving this scientifically. So there's what we're doing on the surface, and then there's other kinds of connection that's happening. And so I don't understand it yet. But I do think it's fascinating. And there is something about this being able to connect with people. And I'm an introvert. And what that means is I'm not shy. It means energetically, I need to restore. So for me, when I'm with people, it takes away energy over a period of time. And so there comes a moment where my husband and I call it hitting a wall, where there's an inside voice that just says, okay, you're done now. Like, there's nothing else to say. And then you just go and restore yourself. And, you just go and spend a little quiet time, and that helps you get restored. So it's important to understand that introversion is not necessarily shyness,
Shy.
but it's energetic. And the energy that Elaine and I share just helps so much.
Thank you. I love that. And I've always loved people and going and talking, but I didn't realize there's a part of me that's an introvert that needs to replenish and restore. And I was just watching this video that you and I are both in, that we did at the Platinum in Austin. And I look gray, and because it was at the end of the conference. And I know that I was just exhausted energetically, even though I was learning a lot and very overstimulated. Like, it was exciting, but I was, look, in hindsight, 3 years later, I realized, like, Elaine, if you ever go to another live conference, you have got to schedule more down, I love people, but I need to restore too. And I love what you mentioned about vulnerability. I might get a little verklempt. It's been an interesting time, right? Like, yay, you got the vaccine. I'm so happy for people who are getting it, and I still can't even get an appointment. So it's like that whole vaccine envy a little bit, which I never thought, like, if you told me a year ago, like, there's all these conversations about the vaccine. And but I love the vulnerability piece, because I was thinking how I'm an actress, trained my whole life, and yet as a human being, I really don't want to feel. Like, so to me that is like the craziest paradox of, like, I've grown up in the arts, expressing myself, singing, dancing, acting, voiceover, blah, whatever. But then as a human being, I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I'm busy. I'm just fine. I really, being vulnerable is necessary for true connection. And yet a part of me is like, do I have to really? Like, can I just be vulnerable like on stage, but not like with people,
Oh, it's so true. I feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
And because for a long time, vulnerability was kind of used against you in
Yeah.
some ways, right? And so there's always that feeling of, well, if I open this up, then they've got info on me that they can use against me, which is kind of
Intel.
a paranoid way of living. But, there are elements of human nature that prove that out over and over and over again.
That's such a
Um,
good point. Yeah, one of my clients, she is so brilliant, and she said how that there was a need to be perfect growing up so that you wouldn't be the target. And I could so relate to that. And I think anybody who grew up with dysfunction would be like, "Yep, me too." And you either try to be perfect and that's not enough, or sometimes we rebel and like, "Forget you, I'm just going to do, and neither of them that really works, and that's why it's so great to do work. But I have to say so I'm so grateful. I have clients, I've got a new program, I'm like, I got booked to speak, I'm like, yay, this stuff is happening. And I also do a side hustle of, I help people organize their stuff, declutter, and then stage their house so that they can get the most for them, most bang for your buck. And I've gotten to work with this realtor like 4 times, and she's a hoot. Anyway, so I'm over helping this woman who is amazing. I think she's in her 70s, at least late 60s, and she does Iron Men. Like, not just marathons, not just triathlons where you swim and bike and jog, but she does it like whatever the Iron Man thing is. And I love it because she's very down to earth about it. She's like, "Oh yeah, I have sponsors." I'm like, "You have sponsors? Like, you get free pasta?" Like, she has sponsors. Like, anyway, so I was like, okay, that story of I'm getting too old or whatever, that just got blown out of the water. So I'm grateful for that. But the other thing that I was so inspired, and she was married to a woman for 30 years. So she was way ahead of the times, right? Like, now it's cool to be fluid or whatever, but for 30 years she had this partnership, and this woman unfortunately got cancer and passed a couple of years ago. But you can feel the love and the reverence for this woman, like, and people bring me in because I work fast. So I'm like, okay, sort this. This goes here. This is going to Brooklyn. Da da da. It's like and if I'm going up the stairs, I'm carrying something, because full hands in, full hands out. That's what you learn in the restaurant business. Anyway, so I just was like, okay, so pick up this box, and there's a picture. I'm gonna get choked up. There's a picture of her and her former lady, and they're holding hands, and you can really only see the profile of the other person, but this person that I'm helping, you see more of her face, and the look of love on this woman's face is so beautiful. And it took my breath away. It took my breath away. That it was just like reverence and love and reciprocal, and like there was just so much in that picture, and I was like, wow, and so I've just been thinking about love a lot, and how I feel like I'm so bad at it. Like, this is our podcast is about being vulnerable and passing wisdom and tips, but I'm 20 years in recovery, but I am still so conditional. I I love you, I love you, I love you. What? You're dead to me, And I'm the most conditional with myself, of like, you should be further along. Oh my God, are you ever going to get over? Are you ever going to get good? Like, my self-talk is still, I've come a long way, but I think that's one reason I feel like the universe sends me signs to pay attention to. So I've just been really having this conversation come at me, and like, I do these 7 a.m. morning meditation meetings with sober sisters. And I'm so grateful because if I didn't have this during COVID, I think I would have gone stark raving mad, or I might have picked up food again, or I've had so many addictions. I would have picked up bad boys even with masks. I don't know. Like God only knows, right? Or started watching the shopping channel. But with masks, yes. Yeah, if you're gonna pick up a guy, you got to make him wear lots of things. So more sage advice. That's why you pay me the big bucks here. So anyway, so I'm in this morning meditation meeting. We've been meeting for over a year now, and I'm so grateful. And it's been really amazing to come through this pandemic together. And I'm talking roll out of bed, drinking your coffee in your nightgown with no bra on. Um, you know, and your hair, I look like Medusa, like that intimate. Anyway, so this woman was sharing today, and I've known her for years, that her son is probably going to choose to live with his father in Puerto Rico. And I can't imagine the pain of that. I cannot imagine. There's a reason I didn't have kids, because I don't think I could have handled it, of like carrying this other human being around with you in your body and then pushing them out and then pouring your heart and soul into another human being. And then if you do it well, they leave. Like, right? Like if you hopefully instilled some good stuff in this human being, then they're meant to go forth and multiply on their own. But like, how do mothers do that? Like, I can barely, my Ivy, but anyways, she was just sharing about how she's been crying and crying in her process. But it was so beautiful because at the end of the day, she wants to do what's best for her child. But I just, and I was just moved again about the power of love and how it is fucking messy.
It's really messy.
It's messy.
It's messy. And when we go through the things and the feelings, because I think the other thing is that, you were talking about the messages that you give to yourself and all of that. I totally relate to it, because we learn to be, some of us did learn to be harder on ourselves than anybody else. And so part of the learning is not so much that these things don't happen or we don't have these moments that are painful, but it's how your friend is working through it. She's feeling the pain, she's expressing her feelings, but she's allowing enough space to come in to say, but I need to do what's best for him. And it is his choice. And you're right, mad, huge, enormous respect for parents and parenting. One of the toughest, unrecognized jobs in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in awe. I am in awe. The few times I've, babysat for a while or even taken care of a puppy was, you saw me. I was like I've taken care of lots of dogs. I've taken care of iguanas, parrots, cats, but like a puppy, that was like a whole nother level of
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, and it's I took care of lots and lots of kids when I was much younger. And it's the reason why I ended up deciding not to have kids, because the amount of work and, quite frankly, the thanklessness of it and the pressures of it are just, it really requires an extraordinary kind of love, because they're just the hours and hours of walking with a kid and trying to calm them down. If you're babysitting for the whole weekend, you have the kid that misses the parents, or you're in the middle of a heat wave and you've got three kids and you have to figure out how to keep them cool. And because they're irritated by the heat, and there's no, it's not a house with air conditioning. So yeah, I mean, and those were me stepping in for periods of time. Now I did overdo it because I was babysitting for, like, I think at one point I had like 13 different families as clients, because I could handle, I mean, I love kids. I have 10 nieces and nephews. They're fabulous. But I also realized my own shortcomings, and it was just sort of like, oh, I don't know if I can do this because it takes a different kind of bravery and love to do that. And so, yeah, this is an homage, whatever the word is, to
It's an
people.
early paying
Yeah,
respect to
and
the so
yeah,
yeah.
for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what they have to do because
I
it's unseen, it's unspoken. Most people with kids, by the time they get to the office, they've already been up for like 5 hours in the days
right,
that you would get to an office or go to one.
right.
Now you get to do all of that at home with the kids there, and it's a tremendous amount of work. So take a moment to thank families and parents for what they're putting up with and what they're going through now,
I
especially during the time where we're kind of locked in.
I love that. And, I'd love to talk to you about rituals because, I'm a big fan. I'm great with my mornings. I feel like I get up, and I'm really working on creating some kind of ritual at night so that I feel because as an entrepreneur, you're never done. There's always, I didn't get to that email. I didn't there's and it's like I know this was part of the reason I think I resisted growing before because a part of me was like, I can't work much harder. And so I'm really practicing working smarter, communicating, learning how to have help and delegating and there's so many different skills, but so I'm working on that, but one thing I've been doing is writing notes to people. Um Shooting for one a day of just like acknowledging them, appreciating them, thanking them. And whether it's an old client or an old teacher or and to me, it's so fun because it's like snail mail. Oh my God. And it's, you can feel it. And what I love too is that it helps me open my heart. So I'm not in that like, I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta make stuff happen. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. It's like, okay, breathe. Elaine, breathe.
Yeah.
Breathe. It's gonna be okay. Yeah.
Even in business, like in the stock market, they have something called a good night process.
What?
Yeah. And it's the reconciliation that they need to do so they know what they have. They know what they need to settle. They know when it's going to settle. So there's a whole process around that. And it was actually from that I started to come up with little rituals. And again, when we're talking about rituals, I think oftentimes, for listeners, it takes us longer to talk about the things that we do than to do them.
Well, and it's funny because the minute you said rituals this time, I pictured like witches around a cauldron, like toil and trouble, black and bubble. But I mean, you can do
Exactly.
that. You can dance in the moonlight, but I think there's other rituals too.
Right. It's what you choose and what works for you,
Toil and
And
trouble.
And here's the thing. I mean, I think that you have a ritual already. Every single person, whether you think you have a ritual or not, you have one. You have one in the morning, you have one during the day, and you have one at night. It's just an unacknowledged one. And so
Right.
there are things that we do routinely that we may not call a ritual, but it's what we do. And so it's sort of like that thing. I think I talked about it before, how they did this study with people who were cleaning in hotels. And they told half the people cleaning in hotels that the work they were doing was actually exercise. So not only was it good work that helped the place stay clean, but it was also exercise. And then the other half, they never said anything. They just told them what good work it was. And the people in the part where they found out that it was really counting as exercise lost weight, started exercising, started feeling better about themselves. So just by labeling the thing that they were already doing, it made it just turned it into something. And so we are humans. We have rituals. We do. They're just not named yet. And so it's sort of, as you say, it's like good morning, good afternoon, and good night. What are some things that we do at night? And of course, if you want to open up a magazine, there are all kinds of rituals, but maybe you start just by noticing what yours are right now.
Which I try to
Yeah, as Elaine Boozler said years ago for our younger listeners, really funny woman. She said, "A pint of ice cream serves four? That's hilarious. To
Right.
that, that serves one. What is wrong with you people?
I know. I remember one time my therapist was like, "Well, you could just have a portion," and I looked at her like, "Are you crazy?"
What is this word
Like
portion?
a pint, yeah, that's a portion. That like
You don't
abs-
divide that up."
absolutely right. I love it. I love it. I love it. And another thing, just while we're on vulnerability, because why not? Um, I'm noticing. I Kathy and I talk a lot about fight, flight, freeze, freak out. What's the fourth one?
Well, oh, that's a good one. Fight, flight, freeze, faint, and now vanish.
And
You like
vanish.
that? And vanish.
Poof. Like, right. So like if you grew up like and I've noticed now that we have a new administration, there's a little bit of emptiness. Like I hate admitting this, but I really see how, like I always say, I'm a recovering drama queen. And there is a tiny part of me that gets a charge, an emotional charge, because I get to be right. I get to be self righteous. I get to be superior. I get to um, point the finger at other people, especially a former ex. We shall not say his name, you know? And so I've just been noticing how there's a part of me that I don't want to admit this, but that has gotten off on, oh, what is he doing now? Oh my God, this is so like all this tragedy and self righteous. Oh, and so I'm noticing, I feel like my nervous system is sort of
Kind of
rebalancing.
rebalancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of like,
And I've felt that too because there's a habit there that you develop because the headlines were always so big,
right.
and so that's triggering chemicals in your body. And some of them are the kind that need more of it to sustain, which is kind of what happens with, with addiction is sort of like, the idea that in order to maintain this, you have to do more of that, right? And so there are times that's what doom scrolling is all about. There's a hit somewhere of dopamine or whatever the chemical is, and that's one that's not renewable energy, so it's you need more and you need more to maintain whatever that level is, right? And so that's what doom scrolling is. You're just going from one thing to another waiting for something to hit. It's sort of that's what addiction was. Not only is addiction, to sort of drown things out, but was also try to recreate conditions where you felt somehow excited, and it didn't matter what it was, whether it was positive or negative. It's just whatever kind of floated your boat or got you into that state. So I really feel the same way that, I'm looking for something to, be like a disaster. And
Right.
again, I say that not because I want there to be a disaster, but because I have been conditioned over the last number of years to just sort of saying, what fresh hell is this?
What's coming? Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, I think our bodies are so much smarter than our heads, at least mine is.
Yes.
And another one of my clients was she's this amazing, gorgeous image consultant, and she was married, unfortunately, to a very sick person who's probably not just a raging addict, but probably narcissist or borderline personality. It's not just the addiction, although that would be enough. And anyway, so I've been working with her with different things. And our last conversation, she said, "Is it weird when you're used to running on adrenaline? Is it weird to feel like a crash?" And I said, "No." And this is one thing I feel like we all hopefully will be talking about, because I noticed after working, in this crazy New York City restaurant for a long time, and I was a trainer, and there was every shift, there was some form of drama, and sometimes it was incredibly crazy, right? Like it was a great place, and it was hell at the same time and so many great lessons. But I really, once I finally realized I had, if I was going to grow as a human being and as a motivational speaker and a loving thought leader, I could not put myself in that environment anymore. And I had to kind of divorce this restaurant. And but I noticed that there was a part of me that was like almost missing that, because there was a lot of adrenaline happening. And so I have had to learn how to work in a totally different way. And I'm so grateful. And that's been for me one of the blessings about COVID, is like getting to slow down even more and learning how to make my own magic. And, and I'll share. How are we doing on time? Okay. Okay, cool. So when I was 4, Kathy, I want to tell you, and I'm just kidding. My sister's been like, "Is this going to be a long one?" No, she says it very lovingly. Um, and now I totally forgot my point, so it'll come back to me, I'm sure. Oh, okay. Right. It comes back like I know, I'm about to have a birthday and I'm learning. I'll walk somewhere and I'll just stand there and breathe because I know, okay, I forgot, but it'll come back to me. So at least I'm not panicking so much. But so I was talking with my fabulous, amazing assistant yesterday, and she had some brilliant ideas for us. And we were talking about, and she's way younger, way hipper, and I'm grateful for her. And she said, I said, "Well, those TikTok things, the dancing." And she goes, "Actually, I know a lot of people who are getting a lot of interaction from that. Business people. You should make a TikTok dance for me." And I was like, "Okay." And of course, I immediately wanted my perfection. Oh, I gotta like do my hair. And she goes, "No, don't. You don't have to put makeup on. You don't have to do your hair. Just do a dance. Do a goofy dance, silly dance." So I did put lipstick on. I did. I had to. And then I put on my. I did have clothes on, and I put a good supportive bra on because I knew I was going to be moving around. And then I put on George Michael Freedom, and I danced, and I recorded the whole thing, and I had so much joy. Like, and I know that song backwards and forwards. I went to his concert, me and 8 gay guys. And he gave so much to charity. I just love the guy. Anyway, I had so much fun. And it was like 2 minutes, 30 seconds or whatever. And she may be like horrified by it. I don't know. But I sent it to her and I thought, you know what? I don't care. I was having so much fun and like dancing to the thing and, doing very, what I would consider like middle-aged white lady moves, but it was so much fun. And it's not a trendy dance. It's not one of those like hip hop, you know, kind of things that I might break a hip. I don't know, but anyway, it was so much fun, and I'm so grateful that I gave myself a dance break, and I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Dance break. It was just, you know, right. White lady moves. White lady moves. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's so great. So tell me what else is going on with you, Kathy. How are your clients? What's happening? What do you feel? Your fingers on the pulse of something.
Frozen fish?
Frozen
Well, well,
frozen in
one of
Chicago? I don't know. Like
oh,
what's
it's interesting how much my attitude about the weather has changed. I'm telling you, I am coming from being a person, if it's a sunny day, it's a good day, and then I would get upset with myself if I didn't feel well or didn't really like rule the day because it was a sunny day out. I mean, when you think about your own journey and where you come to, it's kind of fascinating because, we just went through a really nasty cold spell. And it was kind of hard because it wasn't, it was like below zero or zero. And, And and so it's just so even in an apartment, it was mostly, I feel like I have heat now as opposed to something trying to fight off the cold, you know? And so there is a relief in that and a release of having kind of made it through because, I was wearing, I think we did one podcast where I was wearing like a huge sweater that I have never, ever been able to wear indoors. And I could wear it the whole day and be just fine. Um, and so, so it's just little things like that that'll make a big difference. Seeing the light. This is early. I'm an hour earlier than you, and so, it's light out by the time I get up, and sort of appreciating those little things. And it can be hard to do that when we were just coming out of so much drama. Last night I did pay attention to it was a very brief candle lighting ceremony to acknowledge the passing of so many people from COVID. And I just appreciated, again, speaking of rituals, it wasn't big and huge, and it was, the president made a few remarks, then they walked outside. There were 500 candles going up and down the stairs of the White House. And a band played a beautiful version of Amazing Grace, about two verses of it. And then they walked back inside. And you were just left there looking at that with this moment of silence. And that's pretty powerful stuff. And to just sort of take that moment, how much time did it take out of my day? 10 minutes? And it's the same thing coming back to what you've discovered in terms of rituals. It's not that it takes hours and hours. You can do that if you want to have an elaborate altar. We had that one episode. It was very funny. We had this one episode. It's called "It's Not Just About Candles and Altars." But what happened was Stefan misheard candles and thought it was camels. And so when it initially posted, we had this episode about camels and altars, and I was curious what we had talked about in that episode because I was like, when did we talk about camels? Did we talk about how many humps they have? I don't know. I did not know that. You mean they do like llamas do or alpacas?
Fit. So first, great point. That was such a good point of like, yeah, can you take a moment to help you process? Because I think when we learn to process stuff like grief, like sadness, like the stuff we resist, then we're less likely to go pick up bad boys with masks or drink or drug or overeat or like I think sometimes we can
Absolutely.
just lean into those feelings that we resist. That's where the freedom comes from. But yeah, and on a side note, so I used to work at this restaurant that was cat a corner from Radio City Music Hall. And the guy who was one of the producers or whatever, he would come in for lunch all the time and he'd be like, so the rock, the Rockettes, they did
Yeah.
Radio City Spectacular. And he'd be like, oh my God, the camels are spinning everywhere. Or every year it's like a new spectacle. So it was hilarious. And he always invited me over, but I was always so tired from working so many. I wish I had gone over there, but I was always like, dude, I got to get home because I got to come back tomorrow. But yeah, the camels were spitting. The camels spit.
Didn't know each other then, but I was working on the other side. So I was right near Rockefeller Center too, but nearer to Fifth Ave. And so
Ah.
I would go for a walk at lunch and I'd be like, there's a camel. This is New York. Um, you know, there are some sheep. There's a horse. The horses are more routinely, seen. But, in New York too, you can kind of get a little bit like, yeah, there's a camel, and it's, uh, I don't know, maybe that's a whole nother topic about when things become, when camels become routine. Maybe that's, maybe that's another talk for another day when you're like, here I was walking down the street the other day and this guy walks by and again, it's, I think it was like maybe 20 degrees and he's wearing a kilt. And because I'm from New York and then now I'm in Chicago, I'm like, oh, look, a guy with a kilt. And then I just continued on my merry way. And maybe I should have been more shocked. I don't know, but that's a very big thing now because there are these guys that are driving around all parts of Scotland with kilts and cameras. Oh, that's kind of a cute thing. Anyway,
Wow.
we digress. We digress. I don't know, but you know who did have good legs? I will say this. Placido Domingo in Idomeneo in like circa 1990. It was a terrible production, and I don't know why they were costumed the way they were, but I was like, that guy has pretty good legs.
Who knew he could sing and then he had sexy legs? So
Right.
there you have it. There you have it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sending prayers to Texas.
Mm,
I know it's just really hard. People are having to boil water in Austin, and and I am, speaking of rituals, we started off talking about that. I have to say, I'm so, when people used to say your gratitude list, and I used to be like, you know what? I don't feel grateful. But I have to say, like, especially when it's cold, every night when I get into my bed, I'm like, thank you, God, that I have a warm bed,
hmm.
and hot water. And and I just think about how many people who don't have that,
Right.
And
Yeah, we really forget what a miracle it is to be alive. And
yeah.
just some of the things that we take for granted that we're able to do. It really is it can be hard. And when you're in a desperate situation, it can be hard to feel great,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. And, I know for me, I feel like New Jersey keeps going, hey, you're eligible for a vaccine, but you can't get one. But I'm going to keep sending you emails that you're eligible. You're eligible. We tell you, Elaine, you're eligible, but you can't get one? I'm like, then just stop telling me I'm eligible until, but it's like, Elaine, this is a luxury problem. So, anyway, so thank you so much for listening. It's been so nice just to have a nice, chill conversation. The internet has worked. Thank you, God. And
Yes.
you don't have to wear a parka. So that's up, that's exciting. And, Kathy Keegan is a really amazing coach. If you are looking to change your job, if you hate your job, if you are like, well, maybe I could like my job, or her mission is to end needless workplace suffering. And she's really an amazing coach and a speaker. She's the bomb. So if you are looking for anything like that, you should talk to her. And how do people reach you, Kathy?
www.kathykeegan.com. Did I say that like an announcer?
That was fabulous. It's like my new favorite podcast, Smart List. They'll go into announcer voice, and oh my God. And they riff on each other. It's so funny. It's funny.
Hey, Elaine,
Yes.
what if people want to get in touch with you? How would they possibly do
Well,
that?
thanks for asking. I have a lot of ways these days because I do a master class once a month, and I'm doing Zoom jams. And the easiest way is Elaine at captivatethecrowd.com. So Kathy's with
Beautiful.
a K and Captivate the Crowd is with C's. So that's how you tell us apart.
That's right. And we look a little different for those who see us. But not much. We're pretty, I would
Well, I
say,
went I went with the wet hair look today because Kim Kardashian had a wet hair look at one of her things, and I thought, you know what? If Kim Kardashian can do it, then wet hair's
you look
okay.
marvelous.
So thank you.
Yeah, it's
Well,
pretty
thanks so
fab.
much for watching. We send you so much love. If you know somebody who is struggling or feels like they need to talk about vulnerability or connection, send this recording to them. And we'd love to
Mm,
hear from you. We'd love to give feedback. And thanks so much for listening and watching. And we'll see you next time.
thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.